Hello, it's Thursday, and today we are finally going to be making the pumpkitten. Jack-o'-lantern? This thing, but not this one. We went on quite a long design process for this one here. This project was a bit of a catastrophe, unfortunately having to lose the face on the pumpkin in the process. This is version 6, and it is the version that I am finally happy to be able to share with you. So a written version of today's pattern will be sent out to my patrons and will also be made available on my Etsy. I will leave links in the description down below for anyone who is interested in those. All right, let's talk about tools and materials. So for today's project, you're going to need 8-ply 100% acrylic yarn in a couple of different colors. You're going to need a color for your cat, which I'm using purple. You're going to need an orange and a yellow for your pumpkin, some brown for a pumpkin stem, and some white to stitch on the details of her face. You're also going to need a pair of 20mm safety eyes. Now, if you can't find these, anything from about a 15mm up to about a 22mm would work, but you're going to get slightly different looking kittens depending on what size eye you use, so be aware of that. You're going to need your 3.5mm hook, a pair of scissors, some stuffing, and you are going to need a needle, but only to stitch on the details of her face. Today's pattern is no-sew. So because this pattern is a no-sew, that means we need to make all of the pieces we're going to attach in the round first. So first up, we're going to be making her a pair of ears. So I'm going to grab my purple and we're going to start with a magic ring of 6. Then we're going to work 3 repeats of a single crochet and an increase to get up to 9 stitches around. And then 3 repeats of a single crochet, an increase, and a single crochet to get up to 12. And then in round 4, we are going to work just 12 single crochet around and then finish off. So there is your first ear, and you are going to need to make another one now, like so. So pop those to one side, and next up we're going to make the front paws for the same reason. We are going to attach them in the round later. Once again in our purple, we're going to start with a magic ring of 6. And then 2 repeats of 2 single crochet and an increase, which will get you up to 8 stitches. And then just 1 row of 8 single crochet around and finish off. So there is your tiny little paw, and we are going to need 2 of those as well. So these are the only pieces you need to make ahead of time, but we're not going to need them straight away when we start working on sort of the main piece. So put them somewhere safe for now. And I'm going to let my spider cosplay as a kitten for a little bit. You'll keep them safe for me, won't you? Spider cat does whatever a spider cat does. Alrighty, so there really is only one more main piece that we need to work up, and it starts at the tip of the pumpkin stem. So grab your brown. I'm using kind of a very soft grey brown for this, but use a darker colour if you prefer the look of that. My favourite colours are the ones that show up on camera. So we're going to start by making a magic ring of 6. And then we're going to work 3 rows of 6 single crochet around for 18 stitches in total. If you did want a longer pumpkin stem, you can add additional rows of 6 single crochet in here, but do keep in mind that it may throw your row count off for the rest of the project. So that is our last stitch that we need in our brown, and in the next row we're going to start using our orange. So for this pattern, all colour changes will be made in the stitch before we need the new colour to be active, but because it is a relatively simple pattern, I am just going to be telling you when to change colours. So what I'm going to do is frog the last stitch of that last row of 6. And we're going to use that to change to our orange. So to work our color change, we are going to insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop of our old color, then hold that color out of the way. Again, brown being over enthusiastic. And from here, we'll be working in our orange for a bit. So I've grabbed a strand of my orange and I'm going to hold that on the wrong side of my work, or the inside of my stem. I'm going to pinch it at the base of that stitch, and then going to yarn over with that new color and pull it through both of the loops that were on my hook. And you'll note that this is not looking like a very nice stitch, but what you do is you tug on your tails until the stitch settles down into place. So what you should see there is you've got a finished single crochet in your old color with your new color on your hook ready to go. So I always like to work one row to really lock in my color change before I trim off my ends. It's just a personal preference thing. I actually don't think it makes any real difference. So the first row we're going to be working in our orange is 6 front post single crochet. So post crochet is when we're working around the stem of the stitch instead of through the loops. And because this row here is front post single crochet, we're going to insert our hook from the front of the piece, around the stem, back to the front of the piece, yarn over and pull up your loop, and then complete your single crochet the same way you normally would. So there is our first front post single crochet, and you're going to work 5 more of those around for 6 in total. You'll note that these stitches are sticking out on an angle from the rest of the work, and they give us really nice sharp definition for our color change. So there is our 6 orange front post single crochet. I'm going to trim off my brown at this point. And that's a wrap for the brown for today's project. And you can of course choose to knot your ends off at this point, but I found that the stitches tend to hold up pretty well without worrying about it. So in our orange, we are now going to work 6 repeats of 3 single crochet in the same stitch. So what that looks like is in every stitch around, we are going to put 3 single crochet. It's going to get us very quickly up to 18 single crochet in our round. Oh, is it? Yes, it is. I can do math. We are then going to work 6 repeats of a single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, and then a single crochet. So that is my first repeat. I'm going to do that 5 more times around. That is going to quickly get us up to 30 stitches around. Now you may find your piece starts to like curl over or sort of wrinkle up on itself. Don't worry about that too much at this point. That will flatten out again nicely over the next couple of rows. So there we go. So it should be quite a pronounced little hexagon. We're kind of encouraging that shape to form for this little pumpkin hat, whereas normally we'd be trying to make it a smooth circle, but we don't really care so much about it this time. So the next row, we're going to start working in our yellow. So we are going to frog the last stitch we worked of our orange and change to our yellow instead. So same as we did last time, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, hold the old color out of the way, grab the new color, yarn over, pull it through, and tighten the stitch down by tugging on the tails. So there I have my yellow ready to go. So the first row we're going to work in our yellow is going to be 30 back post single crochet around. So we used front post single crochet when we were attaching our orange, which was working around the post from the front back to the front. Well, for our yellow, we want to work around the post, but this time it's from the back to the back. So there is my first one, and I'm going to work 30 of those around. So that is 1 around each of the stems on the edge of your work. Don't be afraid to contort your work around as you do this either. Like, in order to be able to see what you're doing, you are allowed to fully flip the piece over. Just make sure that your stitches are all going in the same direction. And that's 30. From this point onwards, I really do encourage you to count at the end of each row, at least until we start work on the pumpkin proper, just because if you drop a stitch, it kind of becomes more important from this point onwards. So in the next row, we're going to go back to working through our loops, and it's another row of yellow to give our hat a little bit more height. So we're going to work 6 repeats of a single crochet 3 together, and then a single crochet. So there is my first one, and I'm going to repeat that 5 more times around. Now obviously with this particular project, I've been using 3 single crochet increases and decreases to quickly grow and shrink my project. Now I know that I'm lucky enough to have a lot of sort of beginner designers as well as more experienced designers in my audience who tell me that they sort of learn a lot from these videos. So I do just want to add in, be very careful when using those. You'll quite often find that they give you nice sort of bubbling out textures to your work, but they very seldom work up nice and flat. So just use them cautiously. I don't normally use quite this many in a single project. So while they're appropriate for this particular use, they are not always the answer. So there we are. Yours might be sticking up like a little cupcake. We'll kind of just give it a poke down. And we should be down to 18 stitches around. So at this point, I am going to trim off my orange. So once again, you are able to sort of tie that off if you prefer to work that way. Okay, so we are actually done with our yellow now. We're going to frog that last stitch of our yellow and change to our purple. So this is the second last color change you will need to do for this project. So if you hate them, don't worry, they are nearly over. So there is my purple attached. I'm going to leave my yellow attached for one row, again, just because I'm superstitious about it and I prefer to work one row before cutting off. So as you can see here, we're going to build our kitten directly underneath this hat. We're going to work a couple of structural rows to attach the two, and then we're going to attach our ears in. So our first row of purple is 18 back post single crochet. So that is the same way we attached our yellow to our orange, where we insert our hook around the stem of the stitch from the back of the piece, or the inside of the piece as it were, back to the back of the piece. So then in the next row of our purple, we're going to work 18 front post single crochet. And so we're going to insert our hook from the front of the piece around the post back to the front of the piece. Now you may wonder why I am doing this, but what I found is that a combination of front post and back post single crochet allows you to bend your work at such an angle that it looks like the hat is sitting on the head. And later we're going to do, you'll laugh when you see it. Basically, to make the kitten look like he's coming out of the pumpkin, we build this almost little like internal box joint. So it's kind of like an introduction to what you can do with front post and back post single crochet. So there is our second row of purple, and you should be able to see, if you look closely at the edge here, you've got 2 loops of your yellow visible and 2 loops of your purple visible because of that sort of front post stitching that we used then. So we are of course going to keep working in the purple, and those yellow stitches will just sort of represent the rim of the hat sitting on top of the head. So in the next row, we are going back to working in the loops, but because we're transitioning from post stitching back to working in the loops, I recommend that you count backwards from your hook, 18. And this is exactly why. So when you're transitioning from post stitching back to regular through the loop stitching, I found that it's the most common place where people either gain or lose a stitch. So like for me here, what you can see here is that it looks like this is the next stitch that I should be working into. But when I count backwards from my hook, I found that it's actually this one here that is right next to the post that I just worked around. So I can now comfortably go into the next row knowing I've got the right number of stitches. So we're going to be attaching our ears in the next row, which means my spider is losing his cosplay. He is no longer a cat girl, and instead he's just going back to being his adorable self. Sorry, sir. I don't remember if I ever gave you a name. Guys, name my spider for me. This kitten's name is Jack, by the way, because he is the Pumpkin King. So I have my ears ready to go. And we're going to start by working 2 single crochet around. We're then going to grab our first ear. Find your finishing off point and identify the 2 stitches before your finishing off point and the 2 stitches after your finishing off point. So those 4 stitches that you can see there are the ones you're going to use to attach your ear. So I'm going to line it up on the outside of my work, and I'm going to insert my hook through the first of those 4 stitches along. So you can see there I'm inserting my hook from the inside of the ear to the outside of the ear. And then I'm going to insert my hook through the next available stitch on our head. And I'm going to work a single crochet through both of those, like so. So there is our first one. I'm then going to pick up the next stitch around on the ear and the next stitch around on the head, work a single crochet in those. You should then have the finishing off point of your ear, which I'm just going to tuck away inside the head. Pick up the next stitch of the ear and the next stitch of the head. Work my single crochet. And then last one, grab the next stitch of the ear and the next stitch of the head. So that is attached now using 4 single crochet, and it leaves 8 stitches around the outside of your ear that are available for us to use in the next row. So there is your first ear attached, and now we're going to work 5 single crochet just through the head to get around to where we want to attach our second ear. And we're going to do the same thing again. So find your finishing off point, find the 2 stitches on either side of it, line it up with your head, and then work 4 single crochet, working through 1 layer of your ear and 1 layer of your head. And then 3 single crochet to finish the round. Now, stop and check your stitch count at this point, because where you attach your ears, sometimes it's easy to skip a stitch of your head, which will narrow your round down to 17, and you should be maintaining at 18 around this sort of center ring. So in the next round, what we're going to be doing is working around the outside of this overall piece. So the 4 joining stitches are no longer part of our round. We're not working into them at all. What we're going to do is work sort of down this side of the head, around the outside of the ear, around the other side of the head, around the ear, and back to where we started. So we're going to start by working a single crochet and then an increase, basically where the head will meet the ear, 7 single crochet around the outside of the ear, then an increase where the ear meets the head, 4 single crochet across the head, an increase in that final stitch before the ear, 7 single crochet around the ear, an increase in that last stitch of the ear, and then 3 single crochet back to our starting point. So that should leave you with 30 stitches in your round in total. So at this point you can say that his ears are firmly attached. So we really only have 3 more rows to work before we need to attach his feet, because he's just not a very big kitten. So next we're going to work 30 single crochet around, just 1 single crochet through each stitch. We're then going to work a row of 7 single crochet, an increase, and that increase should fall in the center of your ear, 14 single crochet, which should bring you all the way across to the center of your other ear, then an increase, and 7 single crochet to get back to the start of your round. So that gets you to 32 stitches around, and the next row looks very similar. So in the next row we are going to work 8 single crochet, then an increase, 15 single crochet back across to the other ear, another increase, and then 7 single crochet back to the start of our round. So this is what your kitten should currently look like. He's got his little pumpkin hat on top, he's got most of his head, and in the next row we're going to attach his paws. Now we're going to attach the paws to the front of the kitten. So our starting point's actually on the back, so we need to work around to the front before we can attach anything. So start by working 8 single crochet, and then an increase, and then 2 single crochet. And just like that, the time has come to attach our first paw. So we'll be attaching our paw over the next 4 stitches. So make sure that that is falling pretty close to directly under where your ear is. It should definitely be off to one side. And you're going to grab your first little paw, and you'll see here that it has 8 stitches around. And what you're going to want to do is squish it flat so that your finishing off point is off to one side, so that it forms 4 pairs of stitches along. And we're going to line those 4 pairs of stitches up with the next 4 stitches on the body so that the paw is on the outside. Then work your hook first through both layers of your paw and then into the next stitch of the body. So I've got 3 layers on my hook there. I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop through all 3 of them, then yarn over and complete my single crochet. So that's 1, and I have 3 more like that to finish attaching this paw. So insert my hook through all 3 layers, then work a single crochet. 3 and 4. So there is my foot. We didn't stuff it, and it's completely sealed on the inside because we've attached through both layers into the same row. We're now going to work 6 single crochet into our head. And then we're going to attach our second paw in the same way. So flattening that opening until it forms 4 pairs of stitches across, and then stitch through all 3 layers to attach. So there is our second paw. Yay! So they will be sitting on the rim of the pumpkin. We then work an increase just into the head and 8 single crochet to get back to the start of our row. So there we are at the end of row 17. So we have 2 more rows to work in our purple before we work our final color change. So the first one is 36 single crochet around. So that is just 1 single crochet in each of the stitches. Like so. And then in the last row of our purple, we're going to start the transition between kitten and pumpkin, which is worked over the course of 3 different rows of post stitching. So then in our last row of purple, we're going to work 36 front post single crochet around, which is of course when we insert our hook around the post from the front of the piece back to the front of the piece. So there is that last row of purple, and it should look like this little ridge at the bottom of it. So in that final purple stitch, we are changing to our pumpkin color again. So that marks the final color change of our cat-o'-lantern, and our oranges on our hook are ready to go. So in our first row of orange, we're actually going to work another row of 36 front post single crochet. So these stitches can be a little trickier to work into just because our stitch is already bent upwards. But you'll find that after you've worked the first couple, the rest kind of fall in line pretty easily. Like so. So you'll see that we're getting a really super clean transition between that purple and that orange. And then the third and final row of this transition is 36 back post single crochet around. So inserting your hook from the back or inside of the piece, around the post, back to the back of the piece. You're going to work 36 single crochet around that way. Like so. Now, that is by no means the end of this project, but that is the end of the post stitching I'm going to make you do. So we're going to stop at this point and we're going to insert our eyes, trim off our purple, tuck in any ends, and just get ready to start the pumpkin fresh. So there is our little submerged kitten, and I'm going to grab my eyes. Okay, so because of all of the stuff that we have happening on either side of the cat, it's a little hard to pinpoint an exact row, but what you should do is count 4 visual rows of your purple down, and then insert your eyes so that one edge of them is just touching the paw on either side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then look at them and sort of move them further apart or closer together until you get the look that you're after. For mine, I'm specifically looking so that at the closest point, I can only see 2 to 3 stitches. And I found that that is the perfect amount of space for his little nose, and so that I can put whites on his eyes afterwards. When you're happy with your eye location, pop the backs on. At this point, if you need one, you should take a breather, because when you come back, we are going to finish building up his pumpkin. Alrighty, who's ready to pumpkin? So we're going to build up our pumpkin over 3 main phases. The first phase is across 2 rows that we use to build up the pumpkin segments that will really reinforce the shape across the rest of the pumpkin. Phase 2 consists of 4 rows to give your pumpkin some height that are shaped by adding decreases and increases to keep that sort of floral segmented shape. And phase 3 is simply closing off the bottom of the pumpkin to finish off the piece. So for phase 1, we're going to work 6 repeats of 2 single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, then 3 single crochet into the next stitch, and then 2 single crochet. There is our first one, and I'm going to repeat that 5 more times around. So the part that we're repeating is 10 stitches in total. As we make our pumpkin, I am going to encourage you to use a stitch marker to indicate the start of your row. Just like so. So that should get you up to 60 single crochet around. And in the second row of phase 1, we are going to work 6 repeats of 3 single crochet, an increase, 2 single crochet, another increase, and then 3 single crochet. So that is our first repeat. Each repeat consists of 12 stitches. And we're going to repeat that 5 more times around my piece. So there we are at the end of phase 1 of the pumpkin. And we're heading into phase 2 now, which is the same row repeated 4 times. So phase 1 has brought us up to 72 stitches around, and that is going to be maintained across phase 2, as all we're really doing is adding height, but we are using a number of decreases and increases across the rows to maintain its shape as well. So what that row is a decrease, 3 single crochet, 2 increases, 3 single crochet, and a decrease. So that is the first repeat of the row. You'll note that it's really encouraging this piece to continue to curve outwards. We are going to continue, like that is going to be a recurring theme here. And we're going to repeat that 5 times around. So there is the first repeat of that row. You're going to repeat that exact same row 3 more times. So there we are after repeating that row 4 times. I do just want to say that you can add as many of this row as you like to create pumpkins of different heights. I'm creating a very low pumpkin today. I have tested this up to 6 repeats, which creates kind of a mid-sized pumpkin, but basically just keep repeating that row until you're at the height you want your pumpkin to be. And with that, we're going to move on to phase 3, which is closing off the base of the pumpkin over 7 rows. So the first row is 6 repeats of a decrease, 8 single crochet, and a decrease. There is our first repeat. We're going to repeat that 5 more times around, and that will lower our stitch total from 72 down to just 60. Like so. Looks like kittens all ready for the ball. And then in the next row, we're going to do 6 repeats of single crochet 3 together, 4 single crochet, and then single crochet 3 together. So there is my first repeat. I'm going to repeat that 5 more times around, which will lower our stitch count down to just 36. So we're closing this off really quickly. So there we are at the end of that row. You'll see that we're starting to close off quite a lot now, and we're drawing in the edges of that skirt. Now, I'm playing a risky game of a yarn chicken at the moment. That, yeah, we'll see. I'm going to put it up on the table purely because I want to stress you out as much as I am, but I do have a similar shade of orange I can swap to, and at least it's underneath, I guess. So we'll see how we go. So with 5 more rows left to work, what we're actually going to do is stop and stuff our piece. So the stuffing of this piece is going to be built up in layers just to make sure that we stuff it properly. So I'm going to start by just tearing my stuffing into like smaller pieces. Ready to go. And then I'm going to place a small amount of stuffing into each of my ears and into the hat. The hat in particular, we don't want to stuff too heavily because we don't want it to bow outwards. We want it to sort of sit relatively flatly on top. And we stuff the ears separately just to make sure that they're not missed as we stuff the rest of the larger piece. Okay, so with those 3 pieces handled, next up we're going to stuff just the body of the cat, and we're going to pack it quite firmly. I still suggest adding a little bit of stuffing at a time, but you don't have to be quite as precious with it. Okay, so you can see down inside, I've stuffed up to the sort of the edge of my cat. And next up, we are going to stuff our pumpkin. So our pumpkin consists of 6 segments and then kind of a center middle zone. So what I'll be doing is using just a little bit of stuffing at a time, stuffing each of the 6 segments around the outside of the pumpkin. That is really hard to say. Just to make sure that each is nicely defined and getting its own moment. But I'm leaving the middle kind of hollow for now. And that is just because as we close this opening off more, we're going to tuck more stuffing into each of the 6 quadrants, and then we'll pack a little bit more into the middle if necessary at the end. So that is what we currently look like. And now we're going to continue on with closing off the bottom of our pumpkin. So the next row consists of 6 repeats. Okay, wish me luck, guys. The next row consists of 6 repeats of 2 single crochet, a decrease, and then 2 single crochet. So there is our first repeat. We're going to repeat it 5 more times around the outer edge of our piece to work down to 30 stitches in total. And then 6 repeats of 3 single crochet and a decrease, which will work our round down to 24 stitches in total. Now don't forget that you can add additional stuffing as you go. I'm waiting a few rows between my rounds of stuffing. That doesn't mean that you have to as well. Three rows to go. Next one is 6 repeats of a single crochet, a decrease, and then a single crochet. Repeat that around, which will get you down to 18 stitches in total. So a cool thing about this pattern is it gives you like these really cool like wavy rows around the pumpkin that I particularly appreciate. You reckon I'm gonna make it? I don't think I am. I think I'm going to be 1 row too short. But anyway, second last row, we're going to work 6 repeats of a single crochet and then a decrease. That will get you down to 12 stitches in your round. Oh, so now's your last chance to add any extra stuffing. And then work the final row of 6 decreases. And finish off! I did it! I beat Yarn Chicken, it's a Halloween miracle! So with that little opening left at the bottom, I am going to weave my tail around through the front loops of those stitches. And then just pull it tight to close off any remaining hole there. Tuck that end away inside. So there is our basic little pumpkin kitten. Now I'm going to just grab my needle with a little bit of white threaded onto it. And I'm going to add the whites of his eyes. Like so, and then just a little white cross in the middle of his face for his mouth. Now you can just leave this here, but I am just going to stitch on a couple of extra details. Basically all I'm going to do is stitch on the lines between the segments of the pumpkin, just to help give them some definition. And I'm going to add those lines to the hat as well, which is going to help pull that stem down inside and give it a more pumpkin appearance. And there is your finished jack-o'-lantern. Doesn't it just leave you saying, oh my god? So yeah, small confession. I did all of that stitching and then I decided I didn't like it. So he's been returned to his naked, strifeless form. I hope you had fun making her with me today. She has been on her way to you for over a month now. So that does mark the end of our Halloween patterns. But we do have something a little bit special being cooked up for next week. So I hope to see you there. Okay, bye.